Okay, we now get to Keynes's political philosophy, which I'm going to do too much so far, and it hasn't been stressed enough, I think, in the literature. For one thing, there's the famous one key to Keynes's political philosophy is Keynes's foreword to his German edition. This is not even mentioned by Harrod. I don't know if Skidelsky would mention. I think Skidelsky is a very good historian so far. But Harrod's allegedly definitive life of Keynes. There's not a single mention of the fact that shortly after the book General Theory came out in 1936, Keynes wrote a foreword for the German edition, which came out in late 36, and came out very quickly after the English edition. And he writes this foreword, which has only been translated by obscure subversives in the United States, like Henry Hazlitt and Jim Morton. And, I mean, it's in German, for those who want to check the translation. Anyway, he says in there, he's talking now about the German regime as of 1936, in other words, the Nazi regime. He says, quote, "The theory of aggregate production, which is the point of the following book, the General Theory, nevertheless can be much easier adapted to the conditions of a totalitarian state than the theory of production and distribution of a given production put forth under conditions of free competition and a large degree of laissez-faire. This is one of the reasons I call my theory a general theory." In other words, the theory is general for one reason, because it's better suited to a totalitarian state if it put it into effect than to a rotten, free competitive society. So he looked at the Nazi regime. He thought, this is great. It's beautifully suited to put Keynesian doctrine into effect, which indeed it was. In addition to that, in 1930, Keynes was extremely interested in Sir Oswald Mosley's fascist national economic plan, which he proposed in 1930. And Sir Oswald Mosley set up the so-called New Party, the fascist party, in the early 30s. Skidelsky, by the way, was not, if I want to just correct Mark on this, he's not a lifelong student of Keynes. Before he wrote the biography of Keynes, he wrote a biography of Mosley, so he's particularly suited to understand the Mosley-Keynes connection. At any rate, so much was he in favor of fascism in the early 30s that Virginia Woolf wrote to an old friend of hers in a letter and said, gee, she's afraid that Keynes might start converting her to a form of fascism. She felt in danger of her soul at that point. As for communism, Keynes was more ambivalent. On the one hand, he admired the young intellectual communists of the late 1930s because they reminded him of, now get this, this is a real corker. They reminded him of a typical nonconformist English gentleman who made the Reformation, fought the Great Rebellion in the 17th century, won us our civil and religious liberties, and humanized the working classes last century. Unquote. That's an interview in the New Statesman in 1939. Kind of an odd way of looking at the Communist Party. On the other hand, he criticized the communists for the other side of the Reformation Great Rebellion coin, because they were Puritans, because they believed, of course, in bourgeois morality. Not too many people were more Puritan than an Orthodox Stalinist type. So Keynes's anti-Puritanism then comes out. He says, our Cambridge, he's attacking the Cambridge undergraduates who go to Russia in the late 30s and like it. He says, are Cambridge undergraduates disillusioned when they go to Russia, when they find it, quote, dreadfully uncomfortable? Of course not. That's what they're looking for. In other words, he's attacking communism because it's too puritanical. It makes people, it emphasizes austerity and lack of hedonism. Of course, his moral philosophy is basically hedonistic, and they're anti-hedonistic. They want people to shape up and all that, and that's what he doesn't like. Another thing he doesn't like about communism, in addition to being puritanical, is this proletarian. I think somebody mentioned this yesterday. Quote, how can I adopt such a creed which, preferring the mud to the fish, exalts the boorish proletariat above the bourgeoisie and the intelligentsia, who are the quality in life and surely carry the seeds of all human advancement? There I think we have a key. Who was these grubby proletariat? I mean, he's interested in the bourgeoisie, and the intellectual means the power elite. That means him. I mean, he said somewhere, I think somebody mentioned this yesterday, when you get down to the class struggle between the bourgeois and the proletariat, he's a bourgeois. Why should he join the proletariat? Well, it's a useful, it's an interesting point. Why indeed? So, for all these reasons, he was much more attracted to fascism than he was to communism.